What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So I know that you guys have seen me fishing out of this boat quite a bit lately, but I have not shared with you how I have this thing laid out. I also want to talk about why I switched the trolling motor. But before we get into that, I want to thank Trade Coffee for sponsoring today's video. We'll get into that a little bit later, but first, we're going to start with how I've got this boat laid out and organized and how I've been utilizing some of these hatches. It's truly unbelievable how much I can fit into this boat. I don't even use all the space. We're gonna start right up here in the front. Gotta hop in this boat real quick. Gosh, the days of no shoes fishing are coming to a close and it makes me very sad. First off, we've got the cooler up here. Obviously I keep that empty. This cooler is perfect for when I'm going out fishing solo with two people. You can still fit quite a few drinks and things like that in there, but when it comes to sandwiches or bigger water bottles, it's a little tight, but for just me, it's perfect. So next one back, we've got one of the smaller hatches here. As you saw, I throw my sandals in here usually. I'll keep the covers for the graphs in here. And I've got a big spinnerbait box. And the black box for the livescope is also housed in there. And got the rope down in there too. You gotta have that. This is probably one of my favorite compartments in this boat. It's really handy to have this here. It's just a shallow pan. And I keep all the tools in here. You got your scale, pliers, scissors. I also keep the power pole control up here too. If I'm using the power pole, usually I'll just throw this out on the deck and leave it right next to the trolling motor. Hook sharpener, a little bit of the garlic and chartreuse spray up there, but I love this little box. It's like right at my feet, very easy to access, and it's a good spot to keep all your tools and stuff like that. Also for switching baits or throwing things around, sometimes I'll throw some baits in there too. Over here to the right, this is where I keep life jackets, please release me, weigh bag, and I'll also use this as extra storage space, like if I'm fishing with someone else and they need a little bit more room for their compartment, I'll move this box out and throw it in there. This is the right side compartment. So if I'm fishing a tournament with Ace or fishing with anybody else, I'll give them this whole space. So I try to keep it empty. Keep my sunline in this bag here. Got some electrical tape and tools in there too. I feel like this is still plenty of space for a co-angler to put all their tackle and stuff like that. And it's nice just to have a little bit of extra space. Over here to the left, this is where I keep all my tackle. So once I switched over to fishing out of this boat, I switched all my plastics from a big tub and leaving all the plastics in their bags to Plano boxes. Now, obviously nothing in here is labeled correctly right now, like my deep cranks are actually crawls, but we're working on it. We're getting there. And I've realized that I think I actually like keeping all my plastics in individual Plano boxes over keeping them in a giant tub in the bags. It's just a little bit easier to find what you need, and you're carrying a little bit less overall. Like I can throw a bunch of different plastics into one of these Planos, and if I need to refill it, if it's getting low, just go in the van, load them up, and it's ready. But everything is in here. Terminal tackle, square bills, kind of a random box of top waters and deep cranks, jig box. Also, by the way, not a huge fan of this one. It works great for flipping jigs and swim jigs, anything that has like a thick enough collar that will stick those jigs into this box. But something like a football jig, it just ends up flying around in the box and it's not the greatest. Jerk baits. Got some boot tail swim baits in this one that I keep in the packaging, and that's just so the tails don't get all crazy. So right now I've got 3, 6, 9, I've got 13 rods in this rod locker and the 8-foot power pole stake. They're not exactly organized in here very well, but if they were to be laid out a little bit more efficiently, I could probably fit 20 to 25 rods in this rod locker. It's one of my favorite things about the boat. It's really nice to be able to keep all your gear in one place, and it's truly unbelievable to me how much I can actually fit in here. So moving back a little more, we've got this little storage space for you. This is where I normally keep, you know, phone, keys, extra battery, stuff like that. It's like a perfect dry box in a really good spot too. It's out of the way, it's easy to access, and you don't have to worry about your phone falling off the boat or getting soaking wet. All right, moving back, I guess this would be a good time to talk about Trade Coffee real quick. All right, you guys, so today's sponsor is Trade. And with Trade, you can discover new coffees from the nation's best local roasters. Trade matches you to your own personal selection of coffee and ships it straight from the roasters to your door. With Trade, freshly roasted coffee is delivered to your door on whatever schedule you'd like. Let's get into how this works really quick. So the first thing you're gonna do is take the quiz on Trade's website. Answer the questions about how you prefer your coffee. Trade will curate matches just for you. Once you've taken the test, you choose your delivery frequency and it'll show up at your door, delivered at peak freshness so you never run out again. The bags of coffee are shipped in compostable packing material, which also gets a +1 from me. Don't forget to rate your matches so Trade can continue to surprise you with coffees you'll enjoy. Trade guarantees you'll love your first coffee, but if for whatever reason you don't, they'll ship you out a different bag for free. My viewers will get their first bag free when they sign up. Just take the quiz by clicking the link in the description box. Free shipping is included in that as well. Thank you, Trade, for sponsoring this video and supplying me with some amazing coffee. Make sure you guys check that out. Now let's get back to the video. Love it. So, continuing to move back here. Live well. I've just been keeping the cull tags in there. Don't really need them. I usually don't catch enough fish to need cull tags, but that's where they're at. Once we're filling up the live well, usually I'll obviously take them out so they're not just floating around in there, and we'll keep them in one of the front compartments. But that just about finishes it up. Towards the back, got the paddle, gas tank. Don't really use either of these back hatches for any kind of storage because, you know, it's got the gas tank, the paddle, the fire extinguisher, and then the batteries. But figured I'd share them with you anyways. So that's a quick rundown of the boat and kind of how I've got everything laid out. If you guys have any suggestions or if you see something that you would do differently, please let me know in the comment section down below. So now let's get into why I asked Matt if we could trade trolling motors. So I've got 3 reasons as to why I switched from the Minnkota ULTERRA to the Minnkota Maxim, and I'll explain to you how we ended up with the Maxim. But let me first start this off by saying that it's really all coming down to preference. So the ULTERRA might work really well for you. I'm sure you guys can scroll through the comment section at this point and there's going to be 50 people there that's saying that they have the ULTERRA, they think it's amazing, it's great, and for you it very much may be. But for me, I gave it a chance. I fished with it 6 or 7 times and it just was not cutting it. It wasn't working out for me. So the biggest issue was the foot pedal. The electronic foot pedal with the ULTERRA is like a little bit sluggish. If you are used to a cable steer trolling motor like myself, you have that direct connection with it. If you're working down a bank and, you know, last second you see a stump or a tree or like a huge clump of grass you just want to try to avoid really quick, the biggest issue was that you weren't just able to put your foot on the pedal and know exactly which way it was facing and avoid it. I would have to look at the head of the trolling motor on the ULTERRA to see which way it was pointing or which way I left it, and then get on the pedal and turn it and make adjustments, and it was a little bit too slow, and normally I was ending up like running into a stump or a standing tree or whatever it may have been. But if you fish in areas like me where you're normally fishing pretty shallow, you have a bunch of cover, whether that's grass or trees or stumps, whatever it is, having a cable steer, in my opinion, is just unbeatable. You have a direct connection with the trolling motor. I can put my foot on this pedal no matter which way it's facing and I'll know exactly what direction that it's heading. So the next biggest issue for me and why we switched from the ULTERRA was the livescope. So the ULTERRA has an auto deploy and stow feature, which is very, very cool, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. It made it impossible to mount the livescope to the trolling motor. So you can see right here that I've been running the livescope on the shaft of the Maxim, and I was able to play around with it quite a bit when I had the ULTERRA on the extra pole. But what that does is basically require you to stop fishing. I know that they make a couple of different mounts that are motorized, and like you add extra buttons to the deck and you can control it on a motor mount, but Personally, I think having the livescope mounted to the shaft of the trolling motor is just the way to go. Makes it easiest to follow your bait back, to see fish. If you are scanning an area and you see something, just to pop it right back to where you were. I don't find having it on an external pole, as to my style of fishing, is beneficial. Last but not least, I said I was going to talk about this again, was the auto stow and deploy. It's very cool. Don't get me wrong, I think it's awesome technology. It's really neat how you can literally walk up to the front of the boat, double tap a button, and your trolling motor's in. You don't need to worry about lifting the thing in and out. It literally does all of that for you. It's also one of those things that I've done quite a bit of reading on through message boards and online in general, and I've had people reach out as well, that just tend to go bad. As much as I fish and as much time as I spend on the water and as hard as I am on the majority of my equipment, that was something that was somewhat giving me nightmares. If I was out fishing a tournament or even just out filming a video for the day, the biggest fear is like having to stop fishing. To me, it's more important that, yes, maybe this trolling motor doesn't have the greatest technologies, but I'll always be able to lift it in and out. Even if the cable breaks, I can still lift this thing up and down and keep fishing. With the ULTERRA, if it gets stuck as it's deployed, it's a real mess. You have to take the side plate off and take a bunch of stuff out to get it just to stow again, but then you're not going to be able to fish anymore. So I ended up giving the ULTERRA probably 6 or 7 trips, and I realized it wasn't just something that I was going to get used to. So I asked Matt, hey man, like, I'll take the Ultrex off the Gambler and I'll throw it on here if that's okay. Like, I just need a cable steer trolling motor. And he had this Maxim off of his tracker. He said, you can use this, we can throw it on there if you want. And I gladly took him up on that. And you know, it's an older motor, it doesn't have the spot lock or anything like that, but I'm way happier with this. It's an 80-pound thrust motor. It moves this boat around perfectly fine. I've got the live scope on the shaft. I'm perfectly happy. But that's about gonna wrap this one up. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, don't forget to click that link in the description below and check out Trade. Don't forget, you can get a free bag of coffee, free shipping, free coffee. You got nothing to lose. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys would choose the ULTERRA or a motor like the Maxim, and we'll see you guys on the next one.